Welcome to Icy Gray with Class, Community Coalition, and Crossroads Clubhouse. We are so thrilled that you are listening today. We have some wonderful guests, and I'm looking forward to interviewing them. They are from the ALCC, and I cannot wait for you to hear their stories. One of the reasons I'm excited is because they are a couple of students that I've also had the privilege of teaching and then working with one of the employees with our students also in the past. And so they are wonderful human beings, and I'm looking forward to get to know them. I wanted to let you know that I'm Chantele Steffans. I'm usually on the show with Icy Gray with Class. Over the last year, I've had the privilege of working with the Community Coalition and Crossroads Clubhouse. I get to sit as president of Crossroads Clubhouse right now. Some of you might be saying, what is Crossroads Clubhouse? Well, you should know, and we've had a few shows about that. You also should know that the Community Coalition is a group of people in your community doing their best to get together once a month and talk about how we can serve people who may need to use public services in our community and use them well. We're trying to work together so that our services are top notch. And all of us came together and said, hey, we should do a television show where we work together, give Crossroads Clubhouse and the people who use that a chance to gain some job skills, give Community Coalition a chance to spread the news of what they're doing and the good things we're doing for our community. And Icy Gray just wants other people to see each other as humans and love each other and spread all of the things that are good in our community. And so that's what we're doing today, working together, and we have guests from the ALCC, which is one of those organizations that is in the Community Coalition. We will be interviewing them today, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about their stories. So without further ado, Jason, I want to start with you. I would love to know, first of all, how you ended up at the ALCC, how you ended up working with students. Let us know a little bit of history.
Yeah, so I started at the community center in 2018. I love basketball, and so I was trying to figure out where I could go and have some good games, and somebody had pointed me to the community center, and at that time Anthony Hoskins was running the community center, and I ran into him and Anthony McIntosh, and we sparked up a friendship. And shortly thereafter, Anthony asked if I wanted to run a summer camp, which I had never done before. And I don't know why he thought that was a good idea. And actually, Delmar was in that first summer camp that I ran. And I just fell in love with the community center and the kids from that area and stuck with them ever since. And so it's been a great joy in spending the last several years of my life in that community, building relationships with the kids and the people there. And so it's been a great blessing to my life for sure.
That's awesome. So you didn't grow up in Monroe?
No.
Where are you from?
I grew up in Winchester, Kentucky, which is right outside of Lexington, Kentucky, in a small town, and made my way up north, which surprised a lot of different people because usually most people move south. But when we got to this community, we really fell in love with it, which it's a testament to the people in this particular community. And they embraced us as outsiders. And so now my kids will grow up as center kids, which is another blessing for me. And it's just been a joy being immersed in this community over the last several years.
Wonderful. So how did you end up taking students to Atlanta? Because that's what we're talking about today, is the trip you recently took to Atlanta.
Yeah, so I would love to take credit for that, but it was not my idea. A couple years ago, I think, the pastor at Second Missionary Baptist made a comment about taking the kids to some HBCUs. And so that was just kind of an idea at that particular point. And then I think Aaron Lavender and Stephanie got involved, and they thought it was a great idea, which as time has gone on, we thought about how are we going to raise the money to be able to do that. And so we had a fundraiser at the bowling alley that went really, really well. The community came out in droves and donated to this particular cause along with several other donors. And so I think it started a year or so ago when the idea came to the forefront from that pastor, and then here we are post that idea, and we got to experience that trip, and it was incredible. But yeah, it was an idea that started, and now we got the chance to live that out.
For those of our community that don't know what HBCUs are,
Yes. They are historically black colleges and universities. And some people wonder why those even exist. Well, it's part of the history of this country. Whenever slavery was present, there were particular institutions that were built in order to educate the black community because of the slavery that was present within our country. And not to kind of steal the thunder or anything, but one of the things that for me was so impactful is whenever we went to Morehouse, we stood at the very peak of this particular area in Atlanta. So it's like one of the highest points in Atlanta. And this is where they built the original building that housed the admissions, the classrooms, all those things. And the tour guide told us the reason that they built it on such high ground was so that way the people in charge, the administrators, could see the KKK who would be, in the ravines at the bottom if they were coming up to try and attack or cause harm to the school. And so to be able to see that history and to experience that, it was very sobering to be in that particular place. So it was, for me, just being able to get like a lot of important knowledge and be involved in that history and see it with my own eyes was very, very impactful for me.
I love it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to ask each and every one of the students how this trip impacted them. What did they glean from this trip? What was the thing that stood out to them, that kind of thing. And so I'm going to start with Delmar. I have had the privilege of knowing Delmar, I believe, since 3rd grade. I think that's how long it's been. So Delmar, you were talking about when we started the show that you're getting ready to start football season. And I was thinking to myself, because I've played athletics all my life, I was thinking to myself, if I got on the football field with you, I would run, Delmar, and I don't run from many people. But then he smiles, and I'm like, maybe not. I might not. So it's great to have Delmar on the show, and that is where I want to start, Delmar. I want to ask you, what was most impactful for you? And maybe it doesn't even have to be most impactful, just what stood out?
Probably the company we went to. We went to a company called Salesforce, and they deal in a lot of technological stuff and different things with, what's the word I'm looking for? Gosh, I forgot.
It's like different sales opportunities and platforms to utilize within large companies.
Yes. And tech is something that I've always wanted to go into ever since I was in 1st grade. So it's just being able to see a company like that is something I always wanted to do. That was impactful for me. And I kind of have a better idea of what I want to do after high school.
It is so good for me as a teacher to hear that, because Delmar was actually the tech specialist when you were at Arborwood, and I taught there, and I would call on you all the time because I would get stuck. No, I wouldn't. I would just be challenged a little. No, we would get stuck as teachers, and we could actually call on Delmar in 3rd grade to help us. So if you need a recommendation on your resume, you do not hesitate, because I have had history with you. I love that. So it was a huge company that I believe one of our classmates, who we talk a lot about on IC Gray, how we're a bunch of classmates. So you may be sitting with your classmates when you're in your 50s. I hope you do, because you can't make old friends. I mean, seriously. So one of our classmates works there at this company you're talking about and gave you guys a tour, and it meant a lot to you to see where you could possibly be someday. Wonderful. Okay. Troy, I also had you at Arborwood. He has a fabulous smile too, and I am just so thrilled that you are here today. Can you tell us maybe what stood out to you about the trip?
One of the things that mostly stood out to me was actually when we were attending Morehouse, we seen it was like a table almost, and it was 2 statues, which was Gandhi and his wife. The thing that stood out to me about that was when I was paying attention to it, Gandhi had his eyes closed and he was more lower down, but his wife was more higher up with her eyes open. So we were questioning to why was that, and then we came to find out that Gandhi was actually abusive towards his wife, and he stole a lot of her ideas and claimed it under his, and it just opened up a lot of new facts about what I used to think was true and what wasn't. you know, and yeah, that was pretty much one of the things that stuck out to me.
Wow, and that makes me so interested. So did you feel like the way that they portrayed them then was appropriate?
I mean, because the way I thought of it was Gandhi was a peaceful man. So, you know, I never thought he would be that type to take abuse and be disrespectful and rape women and do this and do that. But, you know, that's one thing that Morehouse, you know, they
Wanted you to know.
They wanted me to know that.
Wow. And so when you think about like the capacity of all humans, we have the capacity for good and the capacity for evil, don't we? And the capacity to leave a history of things that can leave a legacy. And it can be tainted also, right? Because many of us know about Gandhi and some really great things that he did, but thank goodness they tell the whole story.
Yes.
So that we can be inspired about the legacy we want to leave. I love it, Troy. I love that stood out to you. Okay, Miss Lenore.
Yeah.
What stood out most to you?
I gotta say, when we went to the aquarium, the Georgia Aquarium, seeing all the like really big fish, one, it freaked me out, but I really realized how small we are in like the big world, because the fish were about the size of this room. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, seeing all the different types of things I never seen before, like an albino alligator. So that really stuck out to me. It was like my most fun day, honestly.
I love it. So it was nice for you to get out of your hometown and be able to travel a bit and see something different?
Yeah. Like I don't really go places or do anything. I stay out the way, so I thought it was really fun to, you know, step out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Love it, love it. Delmar, when you think about the experiences you had with these other people that went with you, how did that impact you?
Well, with football and some other things going on, I don't really get to see them a lot. And these are kids I grew up with, so that was nice just to be able to have some time to talk and hang out with them.
Yeah.
Since I haven't been able to see them in that long. But yeah, and we got closer. I feel like a few of us. It was just a good event. I mean, just a good time to hang out and just be with each other.
Yeah, be in community with each other. So when you think about, like, I'm all about emotional experiences, and I think that connects us as humans. Were there any emotional experiences on the trip that caused you to feel connected to other people in the world?
Yes, we went to the church that Martin Luther King preached at, and I think just seeing that and knowing the history behind Martin, and just seeing there was a wall of quotes by him and Coretta, his wife, Coretta Scott King, and just seeing that together as a group was nice. I think
it was focused on non-violent protests.
Yes.
So all the quotes were in regards to that, which many people will say that kind of set the foundation for what non-violence protests look like all over the world, which was really impactful. I thought so too.
Yeah. I was able to visit the same spot, and what stood out to me was the fountains.
Yeah.
And what was written on the fountain. Do you guys remember what was written? I know that every step of the fountain had something written. Do you guys remember that? I'm putting you on the spot. I know. I don't remember. That's why I'm asking, but it's pretty impactful, isn't it? And then that's like they're buried right there next to the church, which I thought was kind of incredible because that's not normal, right? But anything else that stood out to you about that maybe evoked some emotion in you?
We went to the park. I think it was called the Centennial Park, and we didn't know this beforehand, but we ended up meeting a guy there who was there. There was a bombing there a few years back, and we ended up meeting a guy who was there at he was probably 50 yards away as the bomb went off.
Wow.
And we heard his story. Me and Amir spoke to him for a little bit, and just.
So do you remember what was the bombing about, and what was his story?
I don't remember the exact meaning of what the bombing was for, but there was a security guard who was falsely accused of the bombing, and that's why the memorial they put there was made, because he spent I think 4 years of his life in jail for a crime that he didn't commit.
Right. Can you imagine? Yeah. So when you heard the story of the person who was there, what stood out to you about his story?
It's just like you see all these types of events happen on TV and stuff, but when you hear from someone who actually experienced it, it's just a whole different feeling.
Makes a difference, absolutely. Troy, when you think about what evoked emotion in you on the trip, meaning that maybe stood out or maybe kind of troubled you, or you just felt emotion about it, what stands out?
One of the things that also stood out to me was when we were visiting, I think, Ebenezer's church. I didn't know, because I don't really pay a lot of attention into historical, but I do, but like I wouldn't know like every single detail, but Jason actually was there to tell me that that's where Martin Luther King originally preached at, and that's like one of his that's like a sanctioned spot right there, and it was just crazy to know that, and it was just really inspired me.
I like your vocabulary. Do you know, how would you explain a sanctioned spot? What does that mean to you?
I feel like a sanctioned spot to me is the understanding of probably somewhere where people can come together as one, you know, and interact with each other without having what's the word?
To have problems with one, just special place to go.
Yeah, just having a special place to go and just talk about how you're feeling, and you know, like how I can go to the center and talk to Jason, you know, like that's my sanction spot. That's where I can go and talk to Jason.
I love it. I love the comparison. That's awesome. Okay, Miss Lenore, you've had a chance to think about maybe what evoked emotion in you. What would you say?
I gotta say, when we were walking up the stairs to the fountain, I was taking pictures because I wanted to remember the moment, because I literally had tears in my eyes. I mean, it was still fun because we still had our friends doing dumb stuff around us, but I mean, seeing the fountain and the little fire thing, it was, I don't know, it was really sweet. It was like walking into history, walking down the same street that had the church on it. It felt like I was just going back in time, you know.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. It made me pretty emotional.
Yeah. Did you recognize what were the reasons that you were tearing up?
I think I gotta say is because my grandmother and her siblings, like, they grew up telling me all about how they really loved Martin Luther King Jr. because they grew up with a lot of like hate towards their skin color, and because they weren't from here. They were from places, all different places. It was crazy, but I don't know. I think it helped me connect to them and what they had going on. It was really interesting.
And their time period, perhaps?
Yeah.
And what they were experiencing?
The 50s, that's when like segregation just ended, I want to say. It's still kind of going on in ways. But yeah.
That is awesome. Jason, when you think about what evoked emotion in you, what did you experience that evoked emotion on the trip?
I mean, being able to see the kids learn and grow and understand the people who have gone before us and what their lives were really like. I think for me, it's important for them to understand those things because it shapes the way they view and perceive the world. But you also talk about, you know, one of the things that evokes emotion, and it was a small thing, but you all probably don't, well, you remember this, but when we were talking about having dinner one night, and, you know, you're out of town, you want to go to a restaurant, a nice spot, and it was the kids wanted to have a cookout.
That's awesome.
They wanted to have a cookout. So we all went to the back, like, of the hotel where they had some grills, and me and Troy were the grill masters that night, and we cooked, and we had a cookout. And if there's anything that says community and family and love, it's a cookout. We just enjoyed one another, talked together, made jokes, and ate together. And so just to be a part of that to me was really special. It was a great moment for me and everybody else, I think.
When you think about, I heard you say that sometimes you preach.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a pastor of a church as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and what church is that?
It's called Outpost Community Church. It's a little church on East Dunbar.
So you have a real heart for creating community.
Yes.
In our community.
Yes.
When you think about the biggest challenges to that, what would they be?
I think what I see a lot of is just false assumptions. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say derogatory things about the East End. And what's always fascinating to me is I say, when's the last time you've been there? Well, it's been how many ever years ago, or I've never been there. And when people come and they enjoy the facility for themselves, they get to know some of the people there, all those assumptions are destroyed. And so if you want to really build community, you have to put away these assumptions that you may have and stop spreading things that may not be true. And you need to experience those places for yourself. And so I think that's a big one, and a lot of the reason that we have these false narratives that perpetuate themselves.
So you have a real a real skill in thinking about your thinking. And it sounds like you're teaching your students to think about their thinking.
Yeah.
We call that metacognition as educators, but we ask you to step outside of yourself and think about your thinking. And I think you have to do that to analyze your assumptions. And I catch myself saying things even to my students that, God bless them, sometimes they'll be like, Miss Steffans, you want to rethink that? I'm like, I do. Yep. And I think we all do that too. But I feel like the ALCC, for me personally, people who have made me a part of that have been very gracious to come alongside me and say, hey, there's an assumption embedded in what you're doing and saying right now. Would you like to think about that? It's one of the reasons I want to connect that with the trip that the students are making is just like when you're talking about Gandhi, there's a lot of assumptions we make about him, that he was a good man. But he's had struggles too, perhaps from his own childhood, of what was modeled for him, and then he was still repeating some patterns of what he saw when he was a kid in his parents, perhaps, maybe not, choices he made, and then hopefully someone helped him think about his thinking and he went on to do good. And so what I love about building community is that we get a chance to fail forward and talk about the things that we did well and talk about the things we didn't do so great. It's what's great about football, isn't it? You have coaches who give you a hard time and give it to you straight. Just like when we opened the show today, I tell all the kids, I'm like, they're great people, I'm so glad they're here. What'd you say?
Not so great. I was just joking for the record.
Yes. He's just giving them a hard time. But you have all of that in community where you can get feedback. So it's a wonderful thing. I guess when I think about, did anyone question you going on this trip? Did you get a hard time at first? Was there any kind of pressure not to go? Was there pressure to go? Anyone want to speak on that, about your trip?
I think there's a lot of pressure on this trip. Well, not really for this trip specifically, but for the next trip. Because this trip had to go well for us to do another one.
Oh, I got it. So you had to be on your best behavior so that you guys could go again.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. And what you guys talked about is that you had to raise money to go. Because I imagine a trip like this is pretty expensive, right? And so what I do know about our community is that we have a lot of people in our community who are very gracious. And so what's great about doing a television show like this is that we can put a bug in the ear of people who are gracious and say, get ready, contact MCOP, contact the ALCC so that students can go on this trip again. I think it would be great for all kinds of students from all types of backgrounds to go on this trip. I will tell you what was awesome about my trip to Atlanta and going to the same historical sites that you went to. It was really great for me to be a minority amongst a different majority. It was really great just to experience what that feels like for people who end up being a minority sometimes. And I spent the whole weekend doing that. And it was wonderful to do that. I met some wonderful people as well. So when you think about growing up and using your leadership skills, because I don't know if you noticed, but it's what you have, right? When you were sitting out in the lobby today, they were talking about preparing for the show. What should they know? What questions should they answer? And Delmar, you just stepped right up and said, maybe we should write a few questions down. And then when you had the questions written down, you shared them with your friends. That's leadership to me. That's being gracious to each other, making sure you're accommodating other people, making sure that you're not the only one aware, but other people are too. When you think about growing up and using those leadership skills for good, because I don't know if you noticed, but you probably have them for a set of reasons and purposes. What do you think about when you think about how this trip is going to impact your leadership skills in the future?
Well, I feel like I've already been doing that a lot, especially with football. Making sure the younger guys are doing what they need to do, getting where they need to be, being the best player they can be. And I feel like sometimes it's a struggle because, you know, those certain kids, you got to work a little extra hard for, but once they figure it out, it's just, you know, feels good, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So you try to be a mentor to certain people who may not be as savvy at the whole game of football and life, probably.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. You know, one of the things that I also love about you, Delmar, is that your mother has been that. She was that. Man, I'm going to choke up. Give me a second. Your mother has been that. For students in our school district, she was that in high school. When she was an athlete, she was that. And so it is really, really cool to see that that it has been passed down, you know, from generation to generation. The last name of Overstreet has had a huge impact in our community. And so for the positive. So what a beautiful name you have. And so I want to know from you, Troy, you have a subtle leadership about you. And have you imagined how you will give that back to the community that you choose to live in?
You know, being a leader to me is, you know, I like to push kids to where they can understand that it's more to life than just Monroe. You know what I mean? Because like nowadays you see people in Monroe, everybody living the same cycle. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's the same thing over and over. You wake up, go to work, or for the kids, you wake up, go to school, come home. It's the same thing over and over. Nobody ever thinks like, oh, what's outside of Monroe or what's outside of Michigan, period.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's why for me, I just want to be that leader that people look at to me and be like, oh yeah, that was that kid that went to Atlanta and did that and did this. So, you know, me, you know, yeah.
I love it. Encouraging people to broaden their horizons, to see beyond their tunnel vision. I love it. Lenore, when you think about growing up and becoming a leader and being a leader, what do you imagine you'll do as you do that?
I gotta say, I definitely want to get more people to see what outside of Monroe's like, because whenever I did, it really opened up my eyes. I was like, wow, this is the real world. This is so much different from where I stay, and I know everybody and everybody knows everyone. It's super small, and it was crazy to me. I just wanted to go out there, and I want to have other people go out there and visit all the colleges that we went to, because that really changed my mind. At first, I was not trying to go to college. And then when I visited all the colleges and I seen how different it was from high school, I was like, okay, hold up, might want to go.
Yes.
And I see, like, my grandma was always telling me, if you go to college and finish college, you can really, like, make a difference for yourself. That's what happened to my sister. She became a lawyer. And I was like, you know what? I want to bring other people from here to do that with me, you know?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about the tactile experience of being on a college campus where you say, I think I can imagine myself here. Yeah. And that over everything, you know, makes a huge difference. So definitely, if you don't go there directly, go there indirectly. At some point. It's a good thing. Absolutely. Well, I cannot believe it, but we are almost out of time. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. You have impacted me today, just being here, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate how you're going to impact our community who decides to listen. So thank you very much. You're welcome to come back at any time. In fact, if you would like to host at some point, we would love to have you. We would love to have you. So without further ado, I'd love to say thank you so much to our listeners for listening. And from I See Gray with Class, Community Coalition, and Crossroads Clubhouse, their Rise program, we would like to say thank you for being a fan. We hope you have a